Okay, hello guys online. Um, we are here. There's like 5 stalwarts in the room here. 2 of them are the speakers. So I guess it's just 3 stalwarts. But you're in for a treat with a presentation by Melissa Pangelinan and Lindsay Delp. Melissa is the director of All In for Health, which I'm sure many of you have gotten emails from, or might even be signed up for, or even have participated in a study through. Melissa is a faculty member in the Bloomington School of Public Health, and we'll play a little game about her and her colleague Lindsay, who's the creative director for All In for Health. So you get to play 2 lies and 2 truths and a lie. Sorry, I don't play that game very often. So you get to guess for Melissa first. And because we don't have anybody in the room, you can all put your guesses into the chat. Yeah, so just to make it simple, you just put what do you think is the lie. So 3 facts about Melissa, 2 true, 1 false. First one, her father was in the US House of Representatives. Second one, she speaks 4 languages. Third one, she has coached lacrosse, tennis, swimming, cycling, soccer, volleyball, and baseball for people with intellectual disabilities. So one more time, father in the US House of Representatives, that's number 1. She speaks 4 languages. Number 2, she's coached a lot of sports for people with intellectual disabilities. Okay, which one is the lie? Okay. You are so good, Melissa. Anybody get it right yet? Okay. Well, Rich knows you very well, so. Okay. Okay, so what was the lie? Oh, then I was wrong in the beginning. Okay, Lindsay. Lindsay worked in the music business for 15 years. Lindsay is an Olympian, and Lindsay has a certificate in AI marketing from Cornell University. So again, she worked in the music business for 15 years. She is an Olympian, and she has a certificate in AI marketing. Your guesses, please. Okay. I think we have some winners. So Lindsay is not an Olympian. Excellent. Alrighty. So now we'll get to the topic of today, which is using AI to communicate health research in a relatable way. Melissa and Lindsay are real pros at this, and they do this for All In. We all know about the importance of communicating research so that people sign up for research studies. So with that, I will give you Melissa and Lindsay.
Hi, guys. Thanks for coming. It's always fun to see lots of friendly faces in the room. We appreciate your time. And so today we're going to showcase some of our work as part of All In for Health and some areas that intersect with my own research where we use AI to communicate health research in a relatable way. So before we dive into how we use AI in our communication platforms, I want to first talk a little bit about the 7 steps to change someone from a stranger to a fan. So those of you at Reconstruct, those of you that know Malaz Bustani, know that there are many touch points that we have that provide opportunities for us to nudge behavior, going from a stranger, someone who just answers the phone or reads a flyer that's posted in a coffee shop, to being a fan or a champion of your research. And each of these different touch points are opportunities for us to communicate effectively, clearly, and in a friendly and kind way. And all of us know that over time, we get beaten down in this process, and it's hard to replicate that same kind of enthusiasm that you might have for your first participant, for your 150th participant in year 3 of your study. And so what we're trying to do today is to provide a little bit of an example of how we can shortcut and enable some high quality communications in a simple, straightforward way that can be reused and kind of fake it till you make it or fake your enthusiasm throughout the way. For me, it's really important that we create processes and tools that can be used by everyone. And again, create fidelity, replicability, and transparency throughout that process. Okay, so we all know that communication is absolutely essential, but why is it important that we communicate in a way that's relatable? So each of our communications, each and every communication, text, email, in person, just something in passing, is an opportunity for us to build trust, enhance our users' experience or our customers' experience, to nudge behavior from a stranger to a fan, and to develop your brand. And importantly, it's an opportunity for you to miscommunicate. And the reason why we miscommunicate is that we have a lot of assumptions about who our audience is and who they are with respect to how we communicate in our daily lives. And often researchers are in an echo chamber in which our language is so high and not relatable in any way that we have a very difficult time not only communicating the importance and impact of our research, but convincing people that they should participate. So here's some tools that we want to think about in terms of guiding the way that we communicate. Number one, we use AI to check our assumptions. We use AI to ensure clarity, appropriate word usage, and tone, which can be hard sometimes. We also want to get feedback early and often. And the best way to do that is to partner with an AI to mimic your stakeholders. And I do this literally last night at 3 a.m. when I was trying to present and practice this presentation. And lastly, you want to be able to tweak in real time when necessary. And that can happen when you're localizing a new study from one phase to the next, creating a new project, or recruiting a new population. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay so that she can focus on this first part of that recruitment pipeline, which is going from a stranger to an acquaintance.
Thanks, Melissa. Hey, everybody. So I'm going to talk a little bit about recruitment via flyers and social media ads. First of all, I can't see if you raise your hand, but just think about when's the last time you saw a flyer kind of out in the wild, whether it was at the hospital, at your primary care provider, or on campus somewhere. And then did you actually engage with that flyer if you did see it hanging in the wild? Did you just see it and go on? Did you stop, engage with it, scan a QR code? Or have you not seen any lately? The other thing is, when's the last time you saw a social media ad? And if you stopped and read it, what compelled you to do that? And if you didn't, why? Was there not a good hook? Was the image not great? What were your reasons for not kind of engaging with that? So for us, a big thing with flyers and social media ads is competing with the noise. When I first started this about a decade ago, we had 30 seconds to capture people's attention, especially on social media. Now that's changed to 2.5 seconds to capture someone's attention. So creating compelling hooks is a really big thing for us to keep in mind. And that will transition over to writing effective prompts for AI. Again, I can't see show of hands, but has anyone either in the chat or here in person had any experience with writing prompts for AI, whether this be for your flyers, for your study, for any kind of ads that you've done, anything like that? If you have, you know, garbage in, garbage out. So you're kind of the teacher and the AI is the student. So whatever you're inputting is what it is going to give you in its output. So for us, we have our Chat GPT, our Copilot, everything set up with our branding for All In for Health. So when we're rewriting a study listing for a team to help them with their recruitment, our AI is set up to know we use everyday language, We don't go above a 6th grade reading level. We keep it friendly and relatable. And when appropriate, for example, nutrition studies, something that's not topic sensitive like cancer or things like that. I sometimes will say, give me a pun or give me a clever hook that's got some humor in it that people would be likely to click on. So those are all things that we think about when we write prompts. Also, you don't want to just say, rewrite this paragraph for me. You want to give it some kind of parameters. So usually we'll do the everyday language things. And then the thing that I focus most on is the who, the what, and the why. So who is this study for? What is it about in very clear, concise language? And why should they be interested, whether that's compensation or the topic itself, things like that. So the who, the what, the why is what you want to keep in mind. Some challenges with flyers and social media are IRB and meta constraints. Believe it or not, Meta's parameters can be stricter than IRB sometimes. So having several different variations is important. A study budget or a quick timeline. I know we've been on a wait list for several months for ads, which can not be super helpful to study teams sometimes, and then not having a budget to kind of hire out those services as well. Study topic not being the right fit for social media. Those are things like rare diseases, very specific eligibility requirements. Those don't do well for socials. I already touched on clever but sensitive hooks. And then again, like we talked about before, just getting permission to even hang flyers that you've created. I feel like that's become kind of a roadblock recently as well. Okay, we'll do a little audience participation here. These are 3 flyers that we created for the same study. I want you all to take about 10 or 15 seconds, maybe 30 if you need more time to read, but just look over these 3 examples, flyer A, flyer B, flyer C, and then put in the chat which is your favorite, or not even favorite, but which you would respond or engage with the most, and why. And then additionally, why not the others. So I'll give you some seconds to look those over.
Okay, all you're missing is the bottom of the pile of salt and the QR code.
Yeah,
for
there's
the
a
study.
there's a QR code there. Uh, 1970s.
1970s.
Rich should know because he was alive then. I noticed nobody is touching on flyer B, the pig on top of the hamburger bun with the Eiffel Tower in the background.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Free trip to Paris for the city, yeah. And then the pigs would fly to Paris. That's what that's about. Okay. Thanks for your feedback. So flyer, we'll go through these. Flyer A was created by the study team. This was kind of their thing to give us to say, this is what we want, but please make it better. Flyer B was completely generated by AI. Totally, 100%, hence the images. And then Flyer C, not to toot my team's own horn, but my team created Flyer C. And we did use AI to help with condensing all of the study material, all of the language and things like that. Obviously, like we talked about before, to make it more easily accessible and relatable. And then the QR code was easily found whenever my head's not covering it. So Flyer C was the one we ended up going with for the study team. And then we also, just like we asked you, we asked go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to channel some of the thoughts in the audience, which is now 87 people. So
Oh, great.
Yay. Did you A/B test these flyers? And you can say no, because I know that's a lot of work, but in some instances that actually might make sense.
Yeah, for the advisory board, we actually did we did ABC test with the advisory board for all three before we gave the study team the final version. So that's yeah, go.
Yeah, so we provided no study information. We just asked the same question that we asked you. We randomized the order and we presented it to our advisory board. We allowed them to go into a breakout session so that they could have a full discussion of what they liked, what they didn't like. And this is a shortened and collated version of that discussion from our advisory board meeting, which is comprised of 15, I think were present at that one, but it's up to 20 community members from across the state with higher density of people from Region 1 and Region 7, and also around Indianapolis.
So this is, as you can see, you probably already read through it, but was kind of their feedback on the flyers without having any information. Not sure what a ketone ester is, which most people in the public are not aware. For flyer A, the text was too cluttered for flyer B. Concerns about time compensation and then inclusion, things like that. What you can't see that my head is over, I believe said it was less overstimulating and not age, race, gender specific, which they liked. So we'll move on to an A/B test that we did for ads. We'll give you guys 15 to 30 seconds, just like we did last time for the flyers, to kind of look these over and see which one would be more engaging for you to click on if you were just on your phone scrolling through social media. So we'll give you a few seconds to look these over. All right, any comments from the chat? Sorry, y'all, I can't see the chat where I am up here.
To the chat, because I have the microphone. Yeah, thanks for your comments. Wow, this is like scrolling by. Meta ad B, visual is great and conveying ... All snacks look good. Agree with that. What else do we have? Catchy headline in A. So there was, I'd say it was kind of 50-50 in terms of which one people like best. I wrote, they look more similar to each other, like qualitatively, they're much more in the same direction. Human figures are more engaging. That's definitely one thing. Although, the snacks, it looks a little bit Christmassy. I don't know whether you made this for the season, but it's like the little season appropriate thing. So, okay, and Kanan likes the chocolate. Back to you.
Same. I don't know who said that, but same. Okay. So here are the results. A, which was Snack to the Future, ended up winning on Meta by a landslide. And we have theories about this. Obviously, they look very similar because the branding that we use for our social media ads is IU branding or Purdue branding if it's a Purdue study, Notre Dame if it's a Notre Dame study. But so the branding, the colors are school colors. So that kind of essentially stays the same, but it's the images and the copy, the language that we change out for all the ads. So as you can see here, there is a vast difference in engagement with ad A and ad B. Yeah, I mean, pretty much every metric went to ad A. So after a week-long A/B test, we went ahead with the rest of the month and a half with ad A.
What is CPC and CTR?
Oh, sorry. Cost per click is CPC, and CTR is click-through rate. So we went ahead and included just kind of the industry average so you could see a comparison there as well. So, and then just remember the audience is just kind of the general public who's on social media, just scrolling through and probably don't really have any health research background or know kind of these highbrow kind of words that we use oftentimes in study listings. I'll turn it back over to Melissa. Thank you all.
Okay, so hopefully I won't bore you guys in the next one. Does the compare to 5 nanosecond window? Yeah, so 5. No, well, obviously. So Rich asked, is it fair to do like a deep dive, right? 10 minutes to look at a flyer and compare which ones you like. I think that it's appropriate for us in the hardcore tests that we run, right? Not just with our advisory board, but actually if we were to run this as an experiment with AB or ABC testing, to have the opportunity like we do with our ads where it's more realistic to what that might be. I think our ads are probably closest to, I don't want to say ground truth, but especially when we're trying to communicate and target a particular population for a study inclusion, I think that makes sense. Oh, sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah, that would be really interesting. So one of the questions is, can you tell if the flyers attracted different demographics? I will say that the comments that we had, our advisory board is fairly diverse in terms of socioeconomic status, education, region that they represent or community they represent, race, ethnicity, and some of the comments that have been made about representativeness of people shown in the flyers or in the ads was brought up by several of our advisory board members. So again, that's a small swath of people. I'm not sure how representative that is, but it's worthwhile to test it. And so with the Facebook ads that Lindsay has, she creates a few different versions. Those are all approved by the IRB before we send them out to our social media and to the world, whether or not that's Instagram or Facebook, targeting different audiences. And then we actually get the analytics in 2-week swaths, 3-week swaths, and we can test that and see what works. And again, when we get buy-in from the research teams, we can actually look at the entire funnel, how many people are reached, how many people clicked, how many people actually were screened in and then recruited through the study. And so I think it's worthwhile if we can partner with different study teams to actually get that entire funnel, do the true A/B tests, and get some more information about whether or not different demographics were interested in some of the visual features of the ads. We will make sure that we have time at the end to answer questions. So I'm going to go through a couple examples here with the second half of this pipeline. So what happens when someone agrees to participate? What's the scrambling that needs to get done for you to be ready to communicate effectively with those research participants? So for those of you that know me, I am a self-proclaimed agile bureaucrat. And what that means is that I love making processes and tools and strategies and things that make our jobs more efficient and testing that out in exactly the way that we've talked about. Whether or not they work for your individual population, your study, or different study phase is something that we can actually test it empirically. So one thing that AI has enabled me to do as a researcher is to actually be more creative and to have a much more collegial mannerism in terms of my social media profiles and the way I present myself on social media, and also the way that I represent my research studies in social media. So I'd like to provide a couple examples of how we move people along this pipeline. Okay, so we'll start off with just creating communication templates and workflows. So the purpose of creating a template or a workflow is to enable that friendly, plain language. I like to use hospitality focused in my in my AI prompts when I'm creating these communication templates. The other thing that I love about this is that we are creating replicable and reliable workflows that ensure consistency and fidelity, improve task ownership, and help improve efficiency. And there are so many touch points that happen in each of these different stages from stranger to fan. So I'm going to focus on these set of touch points, going from first contact, consent, pre-post baseline visits, all of these different components. Again, every communication is an opportunity for miscommunication. Okay, so let's start with a simple example, and I'm just really interested in the group. How many of you have taken, say, your approach for your grant and used AI to conform it to the language for your human subjects and clinical trials documentation? How many of you have used that to populate your consent documents and your IRB protocols? I want to encourage us to do this. This is below our pay grade to fill like drag and drop, copy and paste sections. And so I want to challenge us to see what the limitations of AI are when we're basically taking text that we have written and then populating forms that have a very structured format. And so it might help. It's a good first start. There's definitely some tweaking, just like with when Lindsay creates an ad, she uses AI to enhance it, to improve the process, and also to provide like a starting point. Another thing that I use AI to do is to create communication checklists and scripts that can help us to, again, communicate consistently, effectively, and clearly. And I'll go through a couple of examples of that. And then also you can create protocol checklists and scripts. Again, my starting point for my input is just my approach section for an R01 grant or my method section for a protocol paper. It can help us to populate and give us a starting point to hit the ground running. Okay, so let's start with how I use AI to improve the consent process. Now, if you've used AI to populate their IRB protocol application, you can also create consent. And for me, I work with people with intellectual disabilities. I create different versions of the assent form. So again, same thing. It auto-populates my consent form for 6th grade reading level, my assent forms for 4th grade reading level, and then you can take that a step further. So I'll show you an example where I use pictures, we might use some videos to help describe the protocol as a story. Make it simple, make it easy to remember. The next thing you can do is you can use those simple videos, pictures, or whatever additional supports, communication supports, to check for understanding in bite-sized chunks. For those of you that are working with populations that have memory impairments, maybe auditory impairments, anything that might reduce the clarity of your communication, providing these additional behavior supports helps to improve that communication.
Stuff like that. Like as a medical student, it's kind of like low stakes.
Okay, no problem. I also use these communication supports to help check for understanding, again, prompting for friendly interactions. So not like, questioning my participants, but really opening up the opportunity for an easy discussion and easy conversation. And then also I use it to provide reinforcement and to celebrate completion. So I don't wait until the very end of my research study, 2.5 hours, when the subject is exhausted and hungry and done cognitively. I provide motivation and provide opportunities to express my gratitude at every single step. Okay, so let's go into a couple examples. This is an example of a visual schedule. So for those of you that have worked with people with autism, you may be familiar with what a visual schedule looks like. Again, this was created with AI with some additional image like iconography that I like to use. Again, the contrast is a little bit off, but we're just trying to match our branding. But I use this to create our baseline visit, the description of the intervention, and our follow-up visits. I use these all the time. I refer back to them, I send them to participants, and it helps to guide our session. So every single time we do one part of this flow, we celebrate their success, we give them a break, we ask if they have any questions, okay? And so this is just an example of that kind of flow chart. Again, this was created using the approach section of a grant that we submitted. Yeah, so the question is, do we use it in the consent? So this is not a study that I've actually started, but here's my prep for that study. So if we get funded, then we're ready to hit the ground running. But the other thing that I want to do is that this is our first draft version. So the thing that I'm going to do before I start actually using it is I'm going to take it to my advisory board. I'm going to take it to community members and find out what can be better. So obviously the contrast and things aren't great in this image, but the nice thing is that you can use AI to swap out the images. You can use AI to match your branding template. And so I would use this as my first thing before they even read the consent form. Here's your visual schedule of what you're going to do. So this is a really simplified version. Again, I'm thinking about this from the lens of how would I communicate effectively with someone that might have communication difficulties on the receiving end, and how do I make it easier for them? Okay, so let me give you another example. This is my communication checklist. This is also AI generated. The prompt that we used was create a flow chart for a research study, again, based on my approach section and all the different touch points in which we need to communicate with our research participants. I can actually upload this. I know it's a little bit blurry because it was just a screenshot, but there's like 20 points of communication. And the question is, do you have a script for each of these different moments of interaction with your participants? And can you maintain a collegial, hospitable, and kind approach throughout that 2.5 hours, that study duration? So this is just a way of helping us. So each of these different lines, if there is some type of participant interaction, we can script it. Okay, so here's an AI-generated appointment script. Some of the things I like to add that go a little bit further than what we normally provide with your research study teams is I provide a Google Map link to exactly where the research coordinator will meet them. I provide their contact information, and I also ask about accessibility supports. So I'll show you an example of how people get to the School of Public Health Bloomington and where they need to go, and how chaotic and crazy that might be for someone unfamiliar with the campus, especially with thousands of students walking in front of them and trying to interrupt their flow. So another thing that you can see here is I have a little picture of myself. I always add a picture in my profile so they know who to look for, or I actually provide a picture of who to look for and try to make it really obvious so it becomes an easier point. Again, we're trying to make this easier for people. And we take for granted how easy it is for us to get around in the places that we normally get around. And we make a lot of assumptions about what people can and can't do. Okay, so this is why this is not, and the other thing that AI generated for me was a text message version of that reminder script. So this is a day of text message. So if the person said, hey, I really appreciate text messages, then all of my communications are now adapted for text form. They are templated, so they can add to like a mail merge or a text merge. Everything's updated with the right appointment schedule, and then we just launch it. Okay, so this is streamlined. You have basically a suite of communications that can be launched and adapted for each individual based on their preferences for communication, any notes about accessibility, and anything else in terms of making it easier for them. Titus.
Question from Paige. Do the AIs you use for participant communication have security measures in place to protect participant information they are given?
Yeah, so what I do typically, and I do this for all my mail merges, I create the set of scripts, right? So I can use Microsoft Word, or I can use Excel to basically export and create the mail merge template. And then everything is done outside of the AI. So I have my templates for each of the communications. We do a mail merge with the dates in which the communications need to be sent. This is obviously, I've tested this using like just an email version, but there are ways to do this using text messaging as well, but at least provides you with a starting point where nothing you're writing is unique. It's always the same way that you're communicating to each participant in your study, whether or not it's participant 1 or participant 150. Okay. And many of you already have these kind of templates. So what I find to be so fascinating is that, 5 years ago, I was creating all of this from scratch. I was finding every single icon. I was writing every single word. I was checking for readability. I was probably pretty tone deaf, so I didn't really include some of that. So now what I'm able to do without having to do too much work is I can create a draft. And then what I spend my time doing is editing that draft, improving that content and clarity, making sure that there was nothing that was written or incorrectly transcribed. Okay, so here's an example of what it looks like for you to go to School of Public Health Bloomington. Across the street is the Indiana Memorial Unit, which is like the hub of IU Bloomington. So as a participant rides onto campus to the corner of the School of Public Health Bloomington, they are interacting with like thousands of students crossing that street. And they're supposed to look for my research coordinator to help them find parking. The other thing that you'll notice about this building is that there's a lot of steps. There's a lot of steps. There's multiple entrances. It's just hard. What would be five-star hospitality from a research perspective? Valet parking, right? Valet parking with someone that might meet you with a wheelchair if you have accessibility issues. There are things that we can think about from a participant perspective that we might not always do. AI can prompt you to be more considerate of those needs when you just add frame for hospitality or center patient experience in your prompt. Okay, so here are some next steps that I think is worth us discussing at a high level, okay? So we spent a lot of time talking about how do you hook a person, a stranger from the street, to be interested in your study? How do you make sure that your communication is clear and effective when you're creating your study prompts? We talked a little bit about how you can improve your research assistant workflows. And that can include your setup documents, your cleanup documents, your follow-up emails. You can have them focus on gratitude. How do you improve the operations that you have? There's so many different opportunities where the working at the top of our license, working at the top of our research assistant's license is how do they improve the experience from this baseline level. The next thing I'll show you an example of this is I'm really, really interested in this idea of using videos and podcasts to communicate and disseminate our research. And I'll show you a study trailer for one of the study that we were talking about earlier as another way of presenting information in a visually consistent, compelling way that could be used potentially for our video consent forms, for a frequently asked question Q&A podcast, or maybe even just to disseminate your research after the end of the study, okay? In all of the interactions we have with researchers and including my own like deep dive reflection about my own research, your website can be a hub for all your patient-facing materials. When I look at a lot of our research pages, we're writing for each other. We're not writing for the public. So if we were to create a research website that's separate from your normal profiles at Regenstrief or at IU School of Medicine, it might be helpful to have like a more patient-facing, patient-appropriate website, and that can be a place where you can collate all of those patient-facing materials in one place. The next thing I want to talk about is also social media and just the consistency of the language that you're using. AI allows you to use that same voice, right? Brand voice. And that can be really important when we're trying to highlight our impact, celebrate our study success, and gain a little bit more momentum for recruitment campaigns. And the last thing that I want us to think about as a group is to think about creating templates for our fans. It would be amazing if we could have each of our research participants recruit a friend or a family member into our research studies, for them to be champions for our research studies to their other organizations in the community, and for them to have a template to make that easier. And so I really want to think about how do we create emails or social media templates for our research participants. If they have had an amazing experience in our study, how do they share that in their own voice? Yeah.
I really like that last idea. Viral marketing is one of the most powerful ways of marketing. And so we should all be doing that or trying to do that. However, Rich has a really good question. He asks about, well, of course, he asks about you use AI to do all your images, text, scripts, and so on. Are you also using it to support the whole workflow more? So he refers to scheduling and sending messages, delivering content, consent, buying Facebook ads. So basically, can AI be more of an assistant to you than it already is?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm investigating other different forms. There are SOP AI platforms, which is amazing. So it would like do a screen capture of the entire workflow that you might have, which would be really helpful when you're creating an analysis pipeline. So instead of just dropping your codes on a GitHub, actually walking through that entire analysis step by step would be something that I really would encourage my graduate students, Seminu, I'm talking to you, that you would be able to do. And so that would be something else that would be a communication support, not just for the public, but also for researchers. So I'd be really interested to hear what others have to say in terms of the platforms or the softwares that they use. Honestly, like Lindsay has deep experience doing this. I am a dabbler. And so I'll show you kind of the highest quality versions that I can do. And maybe that might inspire you to try and dabble as well. Again, I do not have a background using AI. I've been using AI for the last, 6 to 8 months for different ways to communicate. And I just find it to be really gratifying when a lot of that grunt work has been done for me and I don't sound bitchy when I try to send an email. So that tone meter for me is probably the most value adding part of AI. Okay, so I'm going to show you a video. Okay, so let me back up. So I'm lying in my bed last night and I'm thinking, oh, I really want a video that I don't want to just show a video that I made before. I want a video that aligns with the data collection we're going to be doing and that aligns with the study we're talking about, recruiting adults with intellectual disabilities into a research study. And so I created a script literally in bed. I used AI, and I can show you my workflow for how I used AI to make that script more interesting, create a better story arc, simplify it, create the steps to creating a video. AI failed me this morning because it only generated 4 images. So unfortunately, the video image is a little bit static. I used AI to record the voice, and I put together a video. So here's what we got. So don't mind the glitchiness. This is a very rough cut.
Everything. Heart surgery, speech therapy, Special Olympics, getting ready for homecoming dances, and graduation. But now, I worry about his future. My son has Down syndrome, and his risk for Alzheimer's disease is very high. He's only in his 40s, but things are changing. He's moody, forgetful, and he needs more help with daily activities. Then I learned about the Aging Brain Care study. Families get information about caring for adults with Down syndrome. Some get one-on-one dementia care coaching for a year. We joined the study to help researchers understand the changes and how to help caregivers like me cope. We need you and your love done to join us. Together we can get closer to better health for all. Now.
Okay, y'all. I literally made that this morning with no real background in any digital video production. You can do that too, okay? So what did I use to make that video? I used Copilot to generate the images. We'll go back. I won't pause it. I used Copilot to generate the images. I used Copilot to take my original script that I wrote in bed last night into something that was an actual story arc and to create the template. I used Adobe Pro, is that right? No, I used Pro to create to align the images, align the audio soundtrack, to align the music soundtrack. And then I used Speechify AI to create the voice. So 3 different platforms to create that. What took the longest time? Waiting for Copilot to generate the images. And what was the most frustrating was that I kept prompting it and it kept creating the language for it, but it didn't generate the images. So it was supposed to have 7 images that corresponded across the story arc. It failed me, but this was pretty good for a rough cut. And I really think that anybody that wants to take the time to do this could do that well. Okay, so I'm going to end a little early because we have about 15 minutes for discussion. So I'm going to bring Lindsay back up here, and we are very happy to delve a little deeper into how we use AI and answer any of your questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Melissa and Lindsay. This was great. I wonder what you can do if you actually had some sleep. So what we can do is you put a couple of questions in the chat, and you can definitely unmute yourself and talk. I'm going to try to look at the people and hands up in the air. But before we do that, I have one question, and that's something we discuss a lot. So when you showed your ABC ads for the study, you meant you said something like, okay, well, the study team made the first one. Okay, well, we could tell that without you telling us that. But the question that I have is, how do you get study teams who were not trained at all, who are not in your business, for whom developing study materials and workflows is kind of like, yeah, it's a job in the project, but it's not, they don't have all the competence to actually do what you guys do. How do you get study teams to realize that in order to go from flyer A to flyer C, they either need to learn a lot or they need to ask for help from people like you?
So Melissa, you can join in here as well. But we've come across, I mean, they run the gamut on study teams. A lot of times they'll have maybe one study coordinator that has some experience in design or social media or something like that. That's maybe at 2% of the study teams that we work with. The others don't have time, honestly, to generate flyers or social media ads, which is where we come in, our fee for service. That's where they hire us to get from flyer A that they've spent a little bit of time on to flyer C that will actually help with their recruitment. I will say now, I mean, even as the last year has progressed, the amount of tools that are available, if you do have someone who can take even a week to learn some things. Like I think Flyer B, the image on that was generated by Adobe Express. Again, you have to know kind of a little bit about prompting when you are doing this. So you would take your study materials, your protocols, and then you have to input them in these various programs. So Adobe Express would be generate an image based on the protocols in this, and then like I was talking about earlier, kind of your brand language, make it personable, make it relatable, make it below a sixth grade reading level. The more detailed, the better for your prompting. The less detailed, the more you're going to get, a pig on a hamburger bun in the Eiffel Tower. And it's a lot of iterations too. So you put your first prompt in and you get the pig on the hamburger bun. We kind of just did the second one to make a point about if you don't know what you're doing, this is what you'll get. But then you get your image back and you think, no, that's not great. And then so you just keep revamping your prompts. Again, it takes some time if you don't have any experience in it, which is what we come up against with study teams and why we even started offering our fee for service in the first place, because it's a lot of time that they probably want to be spending on actual study recruitment and talking to their participants rather than creating these materials. Melissa, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, we just had a team meeting, last week? I mean, again, agile bureaucrat. I want to make the process easier for everyone. Our All In for Health website, not great, especially for researchers. The flow through and the access to our team, not clear or transparent. So I'm going to create a study workflow based on the information that we've gathered over the course of this last year for 2025, based on what works within our own team, leveraging the recruitment registry, which for what kind of studies does that work? Updating your study pages on the registry, using your social media or social media digital marketing, like what kind of studies does that work for? And again, based on some data. So in the first quarter, we'll have that ready for you. And we're also going to revamp our website so that we have our patient-facing version and then also our research-facing version to make our processes and workflows a little bit more transparent. But I think it's fun and exciting and it's a big distraction for me. So I'm sure my mentors are probably cringing when they hear me say that I love doing this kind of stuff. It's been a really fun experience trying to understand like what are the limits, how easy is this for me? And again, I think that most people could handle learning some of these basic things. And if people are interested and there's bandwidth, we can create some of those video SOPs to show you how we did it.
Yeah, let me ask a follow-up question before we go to Kelly's question and then to Rich's. I figure that a lot of people come to you when their study is in danger of failing already, or when things don't work. Okay. Okay. Alrighty. I hit on a nerve there. But what I really think should happen is, at least for people who are naive to this, is that a study PI, when they budget for their project, they build you guys in so that you are actually part of the design team for the study execution, and then the whole project comes out of the gate running instead of stumbling, and you catch them. Okay. And I know that's kind of a difficult thing to bridge, but how do you think you could get from A to B there, where PIs actually say, oh my God, Melissa and Lindsay and their team, we got to get them on, and maybe then they do 2 projects with you, and then they learn by osmosis, and then they're kind of up and running by themselves.
Up to this point, I think it's been kind of word of mouth. Dr. Kawada and his teams, I'll always tout on them because he used us once and has used us several times since. And he started this where he knows he's got a grant coming up or he's writing for it. And so he'll bring me in on the front end and say, hey, here's what we need. Here's what we're going for. Here's our study. And can we go ahead and write this in on the front end so we can skip that whole last part once everything's already been approved and then having to go back with an amendment, things like that. So up to this point, we've had a few PIs that have used us and then they're like, oh, we want to get you in on the front end. Other than that, it's researchers hearing about us. And then it's usually my study is in danger. Can you please help me with online recruitment? And that kind of gets into the timeline that we talked about earlier, where we have had a wait list. And so if it's a time crunch and you need IRB approval, meta approval, things like that, Titus, that's honestly where we're trying to get, is being built in on the front end. Melissa, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important in terms of understanding what the workflow is. Like, there are a lot of people that they only see All In for Health as the research registry and may or may not actually use that. Like, there are lots of people at School of Public Health Bloomington that have no idea that we have, 15,000 or so people that are in this research registry and that it's an access point. But there are limitations to each of these, and each of the different steps, creating a study page, creating a Facebook ad, all of the different versions of the Facebook ads, they all have to get IRB approval. And so one way to really piss off a bunch of researchers is when they're at risk of their trial failing, they have a short timeline. Now they have to get 2 IRB amendments to their research communications, and also we're telling them to update their webpage. That's a lot of changes that are being crunched in a time that it's already stressful. So trying to be transparent about the time frame, how long it's going to take, if there's an additional cost, but then also making sure that people are realistic about the strengths and limitations of the team.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so you answered Kelly's question in the chat already, so we can skip Kelly. Rich, do you want to unmute yourself because you had a couple of questions? I know the discussion has kind of meandered a little bit. Do you want to ask maybe 1 or 2 things that you had in the chat? So just unmute yourself.
Yeah, I guess let's go back to the first question, which is kind of the reality of how humans process information is, very quickly, and we don't spend 10 minutes deciding whether to do a study or not, or we're not reading all the text in this on the screen right now. We're kind of looking at very superficial things. Can AI actually help with that? Can AI simulate the human brain and say, if I were a participant, I'd definitely want to do study flyer B, as opposed to asking, some trained advisory board PhD holding individual to say, well, the word ketone is, right? Or there's no citation in this. I mean, right? So that's my first question. Go back to the very, very beginning, which is, can AI simulate real humans?
Okay, you can't see the body language, but it's really funny. Okay, this was a singer. Go ahead.
I don't think we're quite at the RoboCop Terminator era yet. But I think to an extent, and again, Rich, I think it comes back to prompting, and it's like anything else. The more you use it, the more you create prompts, the better you get at it. So If you know what your target audience, let's say, and you're writing your prompt and you say, okay, mine is for rural caregivers of dementia. See what I did there? And their age, 65 plus, but I also want to appeal to maybe their caretakers, and their caretakers maybe are 40 plus. You just want to be as detailed as you can with that, and then say, this is the audience I'm going for. And I want you to give me the output of either a social media ad that has, is heavy on visuals, describe some visuals for me that I could use for this. Or I want to, set up an in-person kind of jam or something like that. So whatever you're going for, you need to be detailed in that as well. It's just like our advisory board is compromised. It's a good mix. So it's people that have they have a background in education, they have degrees, some of them don't, some of them are, they live all across Indiana. So that's one thing for our advisory board. It's not just made up of PhD or doctors. We've done a great job at kind of, framing everybody within that together, like molding everybody in. But I will say, in a year, 2, 5, I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised that you could just talk to AI and tell it exactly, and it will replace any marketing or advertising. That's just my 2 cents. Melissa, anything else?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. My question's not to replace content generation with AI. That we get it. That's happening and it's going to happen. And the results are tremendous, right? Like that somebody created flyer B by just typing it, a single prompt. It's pretty incredible because whoever created flyer A and C probably did it for spent hours, right? So that no problem. I'm saying, like, can we ask AI, hey, pretend you're 5 years old, or hey, pretend you're a rural caregiver of somebody with dementia, and pretend you're on Facebook, pretend you're 28 years old, pretend you have a reading disability, and now I'm going to give you 2 flyers. You tell me which one's going to get you to participate in this research study. I don't think we're quite there, but I think we need to train and validate AI agents to actually be our test audience rather than to try to create flyers for us, is what I'm asking.
And you actually can. I wouldn't say pretend, because the AI has already been trained on so many things. You can literally say you are a 5-year-old with a learning disability or with dyslexia. You can really name it and tell it what it is, and then tell it to give you the feedback. So you don't even have to say pretend. You can say you are, just like sometimes when I'm doing a prompt, I say, you are a marketing expert at digital marketing. So then it knows, okay, let me go over here, bring all this information in. This is what I am. Okay, now what do you want? Or, you say, you are an artist, and your industry of expertise is in ketone supplement marketing. So, I mean, that's made up, but I'm just saying, anything you have, you can tell it, okay, give this to me in the lens that you are the expert in this field, or you are the specific person.
I mean, I think that to everyone's questions, like, this is a quick and dirty tool, right? It gets us to a good enough starting point. I don't know where we're going to be in a year. I didn't think we'd be here in a year. Even the sophistication with which Lindsay has used her AI certification for our stuff has evolved in a year. So it's not just about the AI, it's our ability to engage and use that AI and to prompt it creatively to do the things we want it to do. So I think that as we become better users in a everyday kind of thing, that is really a powerful way of doing things.
Alrighty, I'm going to close us out to be exactly on time, as we would not be in Germany, maybe in Japan. So this was wonderful. Thank you for doing such a great job. I think everybody online really enjoyed the dynamic of the presentation. I kept thinking while you guys were talking, wow, there's so many lessons for things beyond simply recruiting research participants, presenting your science. You could think about infographics just like the ones you showed. So it was really a multiple value added presentation. I loved your line, Melissa, when you said, don't do the menial tasks that AI will do so much better than you. And I think throughout your presentation, you showed how when you reduce your attention focused on menial tasks, like adjusting icons in Adobe, Photoshop and stuff like that, then you are actually freer to think about the higher level aspects of your work. So I think that was tremendous. And I'm sure lots of people will watch the recorded version of this. Thank you to our audience. And with that, go forth and create, I'd say.